Hey, Safi'jiiva!
What?
Red sucks!
Yeah, well, black sucks.
Which one?
Black sucks.
Red sucks!
Black sucks.
Red sucks!
Black sucks.
Red sucks!
Black sucks.
Fight me!
Okay.
Hello, my fellow hunters. Today we have a titanic battle twixt two titanic titans. Alatreon, the blazing black dragon, he of all four elements, pain, agony, torture, and death, versus Safi'jiiva, who fires laser beams a lot at everything and is red. Now, I don't have a favorite here. Okay, no, I think this is genuinely a really fascinating matchup, and one that might very well actually play out in front of us. You see, Alatreon is very much in Safi'jiiva's lair. Now, we did give him a little bit of, a kill.
I guess I'll just die.
That has never really stopped monsters from reappearing before, and we might get ourselves a full-on black dragon, red dragon turf war. And that is something we all need to be blessed with. And hell, Alatreon coming to his lair might actually give us an answer as to why he was essentially not red, but also black in the tiny little teaser. I'm still holding out the faintest glimmer of hope that is meant for something in the future and not just weird lighting or maybe his arch-tempered form, but I don't know, maybe that is very much grasping at straws. But either way, these two form quite the formidable battle together because it is very, very close, at least in my humble opinion, and that is perhaps surprising because the three black dragons, Fatalis, Alatreon, Daimaralis, they do stand above all, and well, it's very difficult for any other monsters to have a good go at them, but one that certainly could is the one known as the Perfect Being. He who has an attack that, if we believe the Admiral's Pokedex entry level claim,
Not a single living thing could survive that attack, guys! Look, it goes boom! It's so big, so much fire! Everything would just die!
then, well, that is quite the potent weapon in his arsenal, and of course, we will get to that certain Sapphire Star. But for now, let's start with our first of our usual 6 categories and try and work out which one of these would come out on top. Because at the very least, only Fatalis possesses the aura of, you can't do shit to me, son. And Alatreon, while a black dragon, doesn't. He's still very much attackable. So, well, Safi attack him shall. Category 1, physical prowess. Your bulk, your strength, your raw, muscly... And you might be like, well, this one's a bit unfair on old Alatreon. Safi'jiiva's like 5 times his size. But you would be right. No, that's exactly right. He is absolutely colossal compared to him, and it's really no contest when it comes to strength. So, moving on? Well, not quite moving on, because Alatreon is no slouch. He can ball. He can carve into solid rock with his lightning-enhanced fists and blows, exploding away huge chunks of earth. He causes, well, earthquakes just by existing, but that's not really, you know, his physical might. When he goes dragon mode, he uses it very much, well, like Deku does. And enhances his entire body. It courses through his muscles, his bone, his fibers, and absolutely supercharges him with dragon enhancement, letting him move faster, strike harder, be better. But that's really still not going to bridge the gap between such, well, a gap in size. In the animal world, and yeah, they're still creatures, despite having such godlike off-worldly powers, it really is hard to argue against raw size. It's such a factor. And while there are mitigating circumstances, i.e. the dragon power-up, it's undeniable to me that Safi, just in pure physical bulk, he could lie on Alatreon, and Alatreon would be a little bit like, oh, Jesus Christ, get up, go! Oh, I'm winded. And, well, Safi is the stronger of the two. It's really hard to argue otherwise, especially when we see him having the strength to plunge his claw about elbow deep into the ground through rock in order to heal it, which is much more excessive than anything we've seen Alatreon do. So, point to Safi'jiiva.
I'm large and in charge. That sounded better in my head.
Then comes agility, speed, nimbleness, that side of things, and, well, for much the same reason, Safi kinda stomped the last round, Alatreon stomps this one. Alatreon, much smaller, much faster, and is much zippier around the place, again because of his dragon enhancement, but also, you know, he can fly with a lot more grace and precision, and little known fact, Alatreon's actually said to be one of the fastest, most powerful flyers, full stop, which I guess makes sense, given, you know, Black Dragon, but if one of him flew overhead, the wind that rips up is enough to, well, rip you up. So this guy can suddenly dance all day around Safi'jiiva, and really Safi kind of just stands there very still, occasionally getting shunted about by our hits to his hands, and mostly just kind of walks in straight lines and slowly he's not a fast boy, basically, is Safi'jiiva. This one is kind of a throwaway, it's one we have to do, but look, I don't need to convince you that Alatreon is the more agile of these two combatants. Though, admittedly, when he spirals up in the air for Sapphire of the Emperor, that's quite a burst of speed. It is definitely more than I would have thought him capable of until I saw it, but still nothing on our blazing Black Dragon. Point to Alatreon.
Ha! That's right, me, Alatreon! I dance like a ballerina! A cool ballerina, badass dragon ballerina. Shut up!
Now it gets interesting, because it is the round of firepower. Their raw elemental fury, their ranged attacks, basically any way they have of hurting something that isn't, you know, physically hurting it. And this is, woohoo! Look, Alatreon is the 4-element unstable dragon. Absolute cataclysmic lightning storms, hailstorms the size of boulders each one, ripping the earth apart, blasting fire that plumes out as lava from the ground, firing shards of ice with enough power to pierce very stone. He has an onslaught of biblical proportions, and we look at his incarnation to be an Iceborne, using all the elements at once, firing dragon fire meteors, dragon fire flamethrowers, huge storms of ice dragon fire and lightning racking the arena with everything. He absolutely looks apocalyptic, and that's glorious because he is apocalyptic. He's a walking apocalypse. He destroys towns 3 miles away because he's kind of nearby, and that is to be commended. It's to be feared. It's to be in awe of. And look, everything Alatreon does has more raw fury and oomph than everything Safi'jiiva does, except Sapphire of the Emperor. This is where it gets difficult, because Sapphire of the Emperor is the single most colossally powerful attack we have ever seen in Monster Hunter, and nothing Alatreon does either in the old games or in his teaser trailer, and this might change, but nothing he does can reach that level of disintegrating power. Now, don't get me wrong, Sapphire of the Emperor is hugely overkill to something like a human, but against a Black Dragon, that is the kind of power you need to really hurt them. And even something with the scales of Alatreon, that turn away elements, that turn away blades, that shred all that touch them, that are some of the most resilient, toughest, densest scales ever. They are simply supreme. But there is no doubt in my mind that even that is going to get absolutely busted up by Sapphire of the Emperor. And look, we can't really take the fact that, you know, a little tiny rock stops it.
You call this an attack, Safi? Oh, bring it!
Because that's purely mechanical. It's necessity to let us do the fight. There's no reason to believe, you know, his actual Sapphire of the Emperor wouldn't shred, well, everything in the vicinity. In fact, we see it completely blow open the final zone, and that shears away much denser, larger masses of rock than the tiny ones that we hide behind. So that's really kind of a mechanical outlier. So really, this comes down to a main question. Do we give the point to Alatreon, who, generally speaking, has a much higher level of oomph than Safi'jiiva, or do we give it to Safi'jiiva, who has a single instance of the highest level of oomph we've ever seen? Both these guys have the elemental might to tear holes in each other. Alatreon's thunder-enhanced claw slams, for example, would crack Safi like an egg. But then Sapphire of the Emperor, while he might survive one, which would be an incredible achievement, it's going to leave him, well, not looking his best. And then if multiple happen, that's difficult to say. In fact, so difficult, I have to call it a draw.
This is the Sapphire of the bullshit. Really? This guy fires just laser beams and I have 4 elements, and you know what? Fuck you, host.
Next up then, durability. How hard are they to kill? And this one is very interesting, because Alatreon ranks, well, amongst the highest creme de la creme echelons of scale toughness. It really is absurd how resistant he is, and you know, he has to be. His scales themselves are the one that are producing and pumping all of these elements coursing round him. They are a cauldron, a melting pot of chaotic energy just fizzling constantly, and they have to contain that. So in order to do so, they have to be right proper strong. They turn away the sharpest of blades. They stay the firmest of blows. They absolutely shred anything that comes into contact with it. Hunters have often reported, although the few that have come back that is, that their weapon when struck against Alatreon, well, their weapon has essentially disintegrated apart because it simply cannot stand up to what it does to it. That is impressive. That is going to take some getting through, which is why I do think Alatreon could survive a Sapphire of the Emperor, multiple of them more than likely, and in that time certainly do enough damage to Safi'jiiva to bring him down. No matter how many laser beams, explosions of energy, how many slaps and bashes, Alatreon has some serious staying power. He is almost undefeatable, like the Black Dragons tend to be. They don't have their reputation for no reason. There is very little that Safi'jiiva can do, except against Sapphire, that could make huge headway into what Alatreon is working with. But then on the flip side, we look at Safi'jiiva, and, well, he literally can heal any wound by absorbing that sweet, sweet Elder Dragon flavor bioenergy from the ground. Now, of course, this is limited to, well, how much energy there is to slurp up, and if he is in a, well, physically well enough, mentally conscious enough state to do said slurping. But I don't know why I gave you an example of what slurping was. I
liked it.
Thanks, Vitalis. Appreciate that.
Go, Alatreon.
But he is fighting in the nest. That's where Alatreon is seen. That's where he's going. So there is certainly merit to say that he has his energy supply. We can't assume that he's working off the drained floors that we left him. We have to make this a fresh battle, and the location has been chosen for us. So he does have a supply to keep healing. However, Safi'jiiva is appreciably squishier than Alatreon, and I feel like Safi plus all of his potential healing absorbing health is still only around equal to just Alatreon's raw tankiness, and that's quite a conundrum to answer. To me, it really comes down to, can Safi'jiiva survive long enough to drop enough Sapphires of the Emperor? That's the main crux of this battle, and his absorbing certainly gives him the potential to do so there. And let's be honest, it's not like he's no slouch when it comes to just raw ability to stand up to damage. His scales are something else. I mean, you can see that reflected in just his armor being the highest defense armor you could get, at least until Raging and Furious, though again you can make the argument, well, that's just because when he got added, every new monster gets higher defense armor, sure, but we see the power in his equipment, the off-worldliness, the Dragon Vein Awakening. He has that power flowing through him. It's his essence. His hide is special. His energy is special. He has this essence to him that really gives him that edge when it comes to being hit a lot and also, of course, returning the hits. He is plenty bouncy in a lot of places to our weapons, and that really is something he shares in common with Alatreon. He has thick scales. He has powerful scales. He has to. He has to survive his own explosions, and that's something that's often underlooked at when we talk about monsters and how strong they are, because everything a monster dishes out, if it's in the form of they have to be able to take it themselves, or they'll just constantly cripple themselves. Look at the Brachydios. He explodes the ground underneath him. His shell and structure has to both tank that initial flaming burst and then mitigate the force shock through his body without rattling and destroying his organs. Same with Safi'jiiva. He is exploding everything around him, his huge plumes of energy from the ground right in front of him, but more than that, he has to survive Sapphire of the Emperor, and while he's high enough above the initial impact burst explosion, he still gets absolutely coated in, well, the warm nuclear apocalypse of heat.
Tell me you're safe!
And his shell has to keep up with that. Hell, even his eyelids have to keep up with that. If we want to get specific, he is very resistant. So at the very least, I don't think any heat that Alatreon busts out is going to do much, and he does seem to very much be relying on fire in his latest incarnation. So I have to give the nod here, I think, to Safi'jiiva. I think his self-healing, coupled with what, well, he evidently can stand up to, gives him just that little bit of the advantage.
I am immortal! While I'm in my lair and there's energy left.
Then we're talking skills! And this one is very handily Alatreon. I'll just say it right now. I'll just throw it out there. Alatreon is a black dragon, and until we learn more about red dragons, if red dragons are even a thing, if they're even a category, or it's just Safi happens to be the only red dragon, that's just his title, well, it's really hard to say this goes any other way, because black dragons are, at minimum, human-level intelligent, likely more, and they know what's up. They understand, they plan, they plot, they think in a way unlike any other monster. So when we come to how Alatreon would operate in a fight, how he would see Safi'jiiva, how he'd go about defeating him, well, we have to give him credit to his strategic nuance, because even if it's not a good strategy, or if it's a basic strategy, it still is a strategy compared to Safi, who kind of just flails around randomly firing beams, dropping bombs, and giving us new rocks to hide behind every time because he's such a considerate fellow. And again, while that's a bit gamey, a bit mechanically, it really is undoubted that an Alatreon as a black dragon is significantly got more going on up in the noggin department than a Safi'jiiva, and as such is much more capable of problem solving and therefore fight planning than Safi'jiiva. Though definitely Safi'jiiva does have his wits about him. He very much senses the hunter's arrival. He very much retreats tactically. That's literally the whole point of him. He wants his energy, but that does seem much more instinctual than conscious thought. I think it's also fair to mention as well that Safi'jiiva obviously used to be Xeno'jiiva, and Xeno'jiiva was newborn, but even then, during the fight with him, you see him adapt and learn his new abilities, his form, really quickly. He goes from shaky and unsteady, from curious and testing, to really self-assuredly blasting you away. It's a wonderful little touch they did with him. You can really see him literally mature and grow and understand as the fight goes on. And that's a real bonus for his natural instinct, but that's his instinct in how to be himself, not so much as really how to use himself off against a certain thing, but it definitely does imply that Safi is really up there, and I think against anyone but a black dragon, he'd really take this category. And while it might just be my gut instinct, I think it's really hard to argue that as a black dragon, Alatreon doesn't edge out in, well, the intelligence category.
That's what I thought, Safi'jiiva! Gonna blast you so hard all the way back to Zeno!
Final category then is the X Factor, that special something, that which can't really be measured, that pièce de résistance that one or both might possess or not possess. And I realise a few of these categories do get kind of brushed over, but again, it's hard to do a full lore breakdown of two monsters while also pitting them against each other, and basically they have their individual videos for all of the details, and I'm just trying to make this a bit more fun than anything else, right? We don't need to be super specific, and besides, you guys getting involved in the discussion down below is everything, and I would love to hear your take on both what I say and what each other thinks. It really is awesome to see. So when it comes to the X Factor, it feels cheap to say, it really does, but Alatreon's a black dragon, and there's 3 of them for a reason. They're the most powerful monsters for a reason. They're walking apocalypses for a reason. That is countered, however, by the NPCs saying that if Safi'jiiva was to get out, well, it could mean destruction for the world. He shapes the environment to suit him. He attains all that energy, amasses it. He very much does mold the world around him, and that is very powerful in itself. That is very appreciable. That is very impressive. But it's... do we consider him walking apocalypse along with Alatreon, Fatalis, Morales? Do we see him that level of threat, or maybe just one rung below? And to me, it might just be one rung below. Because as much as they talked him up, the most we saw him definitively do was open a path to the Frost region in the Guiding Lands. So, as lame as it might be, I can't look at the fight as anything other than, can Alatreon kill Safi'jiiva before Safi'jiiva can drop maybe the 2, 3, 4 Sapphire of the Emperors it would take to kill Alatreon? And to me, that's a yes. A big, big yes. Especially as he doesn't start dropping them straight away. He waits till he's been pushed. And I think once Safi'jiiva starts being racked with the elemental storms of Alatreon, well, he's going to feel it, something fierce, retreat, maybe get off his first one, and then a very injured, crisped up, but still very much functioning Alatreon is going to realize the threat of what he's up against, and he is very capable of very deliberately going for the kill. And one thunder gouging rock punch to the very slow moving large head of Safi'jiiva, and well, it's lights out. I really think he would have to spam his strongest attack to do it, and while I do think the lasers and the explosions and everything would slow him down, I think physically he could go in for a fair amount of a pin. I do think that he could bat him away, although Alatreon is still fiercely strong for his size, like colossally so. So it's not like it would be a walk in the park for Safi to outmuscle him, though he would just. I really don't see a version of this where maybe 7, 8, 9 out of 10 times-ish, well, Alatreon reduces Safi to a state where he can't even fly anymore, never mind drop a Sapphire of the Emperor. And I think the reason he flies to drop it is because really even he doesn't want to be in the epicenter of that explosion. He can take the heat radiating blast, but probably not the initial explosion. So if he gets his wings destroyed, which Alatreon is capable of targeting lightning bolts to rip through them, well, he's either going to do a Hail Mary suicidal point blank while lying on the ground Sapphire of the Emperor, or just slowly be weakened enough and be unable to swat and hit the fast-flying Alatreon before he eventually succumbs to wounds. So, that's my assessment.
Oh, that's what I thought. I'm Alatreon, and I'm sexy!
Let me know what you guys think, of course. Like you've enjoyed this, subscribe for more, and I'll see you soon. Oh, it's gonna be exciting. Goodbye.
Rage Gaming with the video float.
But that's all that's really relevant at the mo, but I'm still gonna leave this up so you patrons know that I love you even though the outro's no longer that kind of relevant. But the new one's being worked on and it's gonna be a truly badass song, and don't worry, I won't be doing any rapping on it. I'm gonna go now. This was shit.